Welcome to the Geek podcast, where we're calling it a sick day. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
As my cough when we started sure told it. Sick day.
I'll edit that out so they don't have to listen to us cough. Yeah, a little bit more editing this week. I have been sick, so instead of doing a big main topic, we're doing a very short main topic, but we still want to do geekery and catch up and get back into the swing of things. So we're here anyway because we like doing this every week. But yeah, I just spent the weekend being sick basically, and I think I had some form of the flu, some kind of bacteria or virus that I'm fighting off. I don't know. My daughter had it, and then I took care of her a bunch, and then I got it. So I spent the weekend basically just in a fever-induced sleep for the most part. So the main topic here is I just wanted to bring up, because I had this thought over the weekend. I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts over the weekend, but I had the thought, I was like, what do you do when you're sick? Because I found for me that so I was going into Friday, right? I could tell I was coming down with it, kind of Wednesday, but definitely Thursday. And I was like, I think I need to take a sick day on Friday. And I very rarely ever take a sick day from work, unless I really need it. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to have a sick day. I should buy a new video game or I should do something. And if I'm going to stay home, let's make a day of it. And what actually ended up happening, what I did was I bought Devil May Cry 5, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. And I always have these if I can tell I'm coming down with something, I have a day or 2 days of oh man, I might need to take a sick day. I have a grand plan for it, and grand plan being I'm going to sit at home in my pajamas and play a game usually. But it's something oh, if I'm going to be sick anyway, I'm going to be home. Let me do X, Y, or Z. And it's usually a new game or a new something. But then by the time I get to it, I'm sick and I don't want to. I just don't have the mental capacity to play a game. So as much as I always think about playing video games when I'm sick, I never actually do it until I'm starting to feel better or if I'm not bad enough yet. So Friday, what ended up happening, even though I had just bought Devil May Cry 5, was I slept for 15 hours. That was my
Good
Friday
night.
last week. So yeah, I mean,
just a lot of sleep.
what do you do when you are sick or coming down with something, or how do you handle it?
Well, it tends to start out the same way as you do. I get this, the way my wife actually puts it is that she wants to be just sick enough that she can't go to work, but not sick enough to actually not be able to enjoy the time off. And I rarely get that because it's if I'm sick, I'm a baby. It's we were talking before we started recording that I get the man flu. I don't know, depending on where you guys are listening from, that may be a thing where you are. Void has never heard of that, but that's what my wife and everybody, her friends and all joke around about it. And I get it, and I'm fully aware of it, that when I'm sick, I'm just a baby and I want to be taken care of. And it's if I'm just a little sick, if it's a minor thing, my head hurts a little bit, I feel kind of bad, I lost my voice or something, I usually just rest, watch some TV. I usually don't go out and buy a video game or anything unless there's something that's just been on my mind that I want to get. And while I'm lying at home, I'm I'm going to do that right now kind of thing. And I'll just watch TV, play video games between naps. I tend to sleep a lot whenever there's something wrong with me. But when I am really sick, that is, oh man, when I'm sick like you were, it is so terrible for me and everybody around me. It's my head hurts, which puts me into a bad mood. I'm mad and I'm cranky and I just lie there and complain. I sleep and I don't really want to watch anything because I can't focus on anything. I can't really play a game because it takes so much energy whenever I'm sick like you were. And it's just bad. I am no fun to be around like that. It's I complain nonstop.
And that's funny because I know plenty of people like that. I'm not. I deal with sickness really well, and maybe it's because when I was dealing with getting diagnosed with allergies and asthma, I had a few years of my life. It was right around middle school too, which just makes it a whole another thing on top of it, basically. But where I was just it felt like I was constantly dealing with sickness. So yeah, I dealt with being sick for a long time. And then the other thing was asthma and allergies are also a lifelong thing. So it's I'm constantly dealing with something. And most of the time I'm fairly normal, but also I'm used to just taking meds and then moving on with my day, kind of regardless of how I feel. If I'm having a bad breathing day or a bad allergy day or whatever, I just compensate with medicine, and then I like do it anyway. And I've been doing that my whole life, not to mention like I'm a lifelong headache sufferer. Like if you ask me on any day at any time, I basically have a headache. And it's just kind of, it runs in the family. My mom's the same way. My brother gets it a lot. My grandpa had it. So it's like, it's just a thing. Yeah. So I guess I'm just kind of used to dealing with that kind of thing. Like sickness and chronic conditions and pain. And like, I don't mean to make it sound worse than it is, because it's just like a background to my life. So I've just learned to deal with it. But when I do get something like this that knocks me out, like a flu or a cold or whatever, I guess I've built up enough coping mechanisms and I've had enough experience with it that I just deal with it.
That makes sense. And that's probably why I'm so bad at it, because when I was young, like I got sick, like I had bronchitis every year, but that was about it. Like I had physical injury like all the time. My pediatrician said that I put his kids through college because I was always in there with a broken bone, a sprain, a cut, something that needed stitches, glue, whatever. That was me. I was the physical injury kid. But in terms of sickness and asthma and stuff, I just got bronchitis like every year until I was 14. And other than that, it was just normal kid sickness stuff, like nothing abnormal. And then older than that, I pretty much didn't get sick very much at all. I still don't get really sick very often. So whenever I do get sick, it is all just no holds barred. I don't know how to handle it, feeling that terrible. And like I tear the ligament in my ankle and I feel really terrible and it hurts, but I don't get that tore up about it. But you give me laryngitis and a headache and you'll think that somebody killed my puppy.
I don't know what that phrase means exactly.
I get angry. I go John Wick on somebody.
Okay, fair enough. So anyway, yeah, the sick day was not what I had hoped it would be, but it never is. It's just I always go through that right before a sick day. I'm like, oh, maybe I can do something, and then I never do anything. I just sleep. So I mean, I'm feeling better. I'm not 100%. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit before we got into geekery. So I think we'll cut it short there as like a super short main topic this week, just since I am sick and I am still getting better. But really quickly, why don't we talk about the geeky offer of the week?
So everybody remember that we have a Patreon, and if you like the podcast, if you'd like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/geek2geekcast. We have all sorts of really cool rewards, and you can get your name in lights. We have different Discord roles and Reddit flair and things like that for just a couple of dollars a month. So check it out. It's got some cool stuff at patreon.com/geek2geekcast.
And around the network this week, Geek2 Joe is still slowly becoming a robot, but hopefully he'll get over that. Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea, they talked about Captain Marvel this week, which was interesting to listen to. And Capsule J streaming on Tuesdays from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes Thursdays and weekends. And Troidal is kind of standardizing on Thursday nights sometime after dinner. So everyone's still kicking it and doing well out there on the network. For Weekly Geekery this week, I finished up a little bit of Anthem. Like I told you after last week's episode that I was going to try it a little bit more, and I played like another hour, and I hit another grindy roadblock, and I just deleted the game. Like that.
Oh my God, seriously?
Yeah, that was it. Like I gave it another shot, and the story was starting to pick up again because I had gotten over that one grind, and I hit another one almost like not right away, but within an hour. And then I was just like, I don't know. But in talking to my friends and after that episode, in talking to listeners and stuff, it really sounds like you can get a better experience on PC. So I kind of regret the platform I bought it on. But yeah, I'm done with Anthem for the moment.
I don't guess you're going to want to buy the PC version and kind of redo and revisit the stuff that you've already done. You didn't like it enough to even try that, did you?
No, there's something there, but there wasn't enough there, if that makes sense. Yeah. So not right now, but like in hindsight, I would have bought it on PC instead. That's probably the better option that I should have done. So I did that a little bit before I was getting sick. And then at the same time, because I was still in that like idle clicker mood, I played Space Plan, which is like a really short idle game, but it has an interesting story. So I was telling you how I like it when they like incorporate a story into it.
Yeah.
So I beat it like very casually playing in like 3 days. But it's cool. I like idle games that I can beat, and I like idle games that have a story. Like I think I've talked about Universal Paperclips in the past.
Yeah, I've heard you mention that before, and I think I saw you mention it either on Slack or Twitter, and I didn't even bother looking it up. I've heard you mention it so many times.
It's like one of the best clicker games that I've ever played because it becomes so much more than that, but it starts out just like every other clicker game you've ever seen. And it morphs and it twists, and there's a story there, but there's like so much else with the gameplay too that I don't even want to like give it away because that's what makes it interesting, basically. But Space Plan wasn't to that extent, but Space Plan was pretty good, and it kind of reminded me of it in a couple ways. So I can recommend that one. It's on iOS, and I think it's on Android too. Yeah, and then, like I said, I tried a bunch of other stuff while I actually was sick. Those were kind of the two I did beforehand. But before I get into that, what did you do this week?
So this week, Jennifer and I decided that we're going to watch the entire MCU before Avengers Endgame.
Wow.
That we've never done this. That you went back and rewatched all of the MCU movies before. Was it Infinity War that you did that?
Yep.
Captain Marvel made us want to do it. That we loved Captain Marvel. That we're still talking about Captain Marvel. So it made us really want to go back. And right now, we have watched everything up to Avengers. That we would have already gotten a couple past it, but she's had to work late the last couple of nights. So we haven't finished Avengers yet. But we'll probably do that actually tonight if she doesn't get home too late. And they're really good. Like, we forgot how good these early MCU movies were and how well put together they are as a whole. It's like you can even see stuff in Iron Man that goes into later movies and later on in the MCU, and it had that feel from the very beginning, and it kind of amazes us that they were able to do that. I still hold that Iron Man 2 is a very good movie, and no one can take that from me. And I liked Thor a lot. I liked it less this time than I usually do. I'm not sure what about my tastes have changed so much, but I really adored Captain America: The First Avenger so much more than I thought, so much more than I remembered. That movie is just so good. And I cannot wait to get into the rest of these. It's like we're going to be, barreling through these because Endgame comes out in roughly 1 month now, and we have maybe 16 movies to get through at this point. So it's going to be a lot, but we're really excited about this. Like, we've never done something to this extent with a movie watching. It's like watching all the Star Wars movies. That's one thing, but this is like 20 movies.
Yeah, the MCU is a big undertaking these days.
We skipped The Incredible Hulk. That one, because that one doesn't count. I don't care what they say.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. I agree.
It does not count. Other than that, like, we went to, I mentioned a little bit earlier that that I was going to talk about a play that we went to, and you may have cut that part out of the podcast. I don't know, but if you didn't, mention it.
Between coughing and interruptions we've already had in this short amount of time, this is going to be more editing than I normally do in a full-length podcast. So we'll see what makes it and what doesn't.
That's weird. That sucks. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Well, we went to see a play, and we saw King Lear. And I've seen King Lear before. I'd never really read King Lear, even though I was an English major. It was never something that got assigned to me. And what was interesting about this, and the reason I bring it up, is because King Lear it's about a 4-hour play when you do it unabridged. That's not including an intermission. So you're looking at 4.5 to 5 hours of pure unabridged. So this was from the London stage. And what they did was they have this troupe of actors, and there are 5 of them on tour. There are only 5 actors in this troupe. And the London stage sends them an unabridged copy of the script of King Lear, and it is up to them as actors to decide what part of that they're going to put on for their tour to make a cohesive story, and who's going to play what parts, because there's no director. So there are 5 people playing roughly 25 parts in this little black box theater production that's touring from the London stage. They came and did stuff at the university is why they were there, and it was so good that these actors were so unbelievably talented that they had some of the men. There were 3 men and 2 women, and they did not matter about gender, who was playing what, and all of them were just amazing, because like the two men who were playing two of the daughters would have shawls, like scarves, wrapped around them, and they would hang a certain way off of one of their arms that they would always hold out, so that you knew that they were one of the sisters, like that. And then they would have like maybe a hat that they wore if they were a guard, and it was just so well put together that after about 10 minutes, you didn't even notice that they were really changing back and forth. You just knew who those characters were. And what was even better is that they sometimes had to play multiple characters in the same scene and interact with themselves. And it was the most believable I've ever seen that happen. And it wasn't played for comedic effect, unless it was a comedy scene. I mean, of course, Shakespeare wrote a lot of those, but they would do this in serious dramatic scenes. And there was one time where a character had a fight scene with themselves, and it was probably the most dramatic scene in the movie, or in the play. It was crazy how well they put this together. So
that's super cool.
If the London stage has a production of Shakespeare coming around your area anytime this year, they're out of the University of Notre Dame. That's where their base is right now in the United States, in terms of the tour, where their home base is. And all of these people are from the UK, I believe. But they're touring around the United States right now. So if you see your university is putting on production by actors from the London stage, it's not a student production at all. They're wholly professional actors, and it's probably the most entertaining Shakespeare production that I've seen. Like, hands down, awesomeness. Just to see I don't like Lear, but just to see the technical prowess these actors had was more than worth the couple of hours put in. Like, it was great.
That's really cool.
And then I've been playing different games. Most of what I've done is RPG Maker, but I'll be talking about that more next week. I played Cat Quest a while back. While you were gone, I played through Cat Quest finally.
I keep seeing this game. Like, I don't know. I've looked at it on iOS. I don't even know how many times, because it's constantly like one of the top games. Like, and it keeps coming up on lists and stuff. Like, what is it? What makes it interesting?
Okay, first of all, don't play it on iOS. I don't know how it is on iOS, but there's a Switch version, and I know that it is amazeballs. Like, it is great because of the way the controls are. It's an action RPG, and every single thing about this is cat puns. Like, all of it is cat puns. Like, everything from the abilities to the way they do. When you save it, you take a cat nap. Like, all of it. But it is this beautiful hand-drawn action RPG where you are going through, and there is a story where you are trying to rescue your sister, and there's an evil wizard, and it's just fun. The story is fine. I mean, there's a story driving the whole thing, why you're moving from point A to point B, but the animation, it is just gorgeous. That I don't even know how to describe it, other than where Ni no Kuni looks like you are playing a Studio Ghibli, I don't know, y'all know I can't say it, kind of cartoon. That's how this feels, except it's just a cartoon. It's like you're wandering around the world map of an RPG, blowing up enemies. Like, the entire map looks like a map, too. That's one of the cool things. It looks like a slanted, isometric, almost Mode 7 map from Super Nintendo, just that kind of overworld, like sprawling overworld that you would have walked on. And instead of having towns that you would go into, it's just there are things on the map that you go in, and there are caves that you explore, loot that you get, and it's made to be played over and over again. I beat it in probably maybe 6-ish hours, but it's made to go over and over and over again in Mew Game Plus, and and it is like Mew as in kitty Mew. It is so good. Like, it's just fun to play too. It's like they got the really, really simple battle system where you it's action where you every button press does something, so it's not turn based. There's no moving into a different kind of screen. It's just fun and fast paced. And in the main game, there is no penalty for dying. That you just immediately start back at your last save point, but everything you did up to that point was saved as well. So if you get in over your head, you don't have to worry about actually losing progress. You just have to get back to that point. So you need to make sure you save at a near spot near where you are if you're going to do anything stupid like I tended to do. But like, it's just fun to play. It's pretty and it's fun to play, and it was hilarious because there were cat puns everywhere.
Okay, I don't think you've sold me on it, but I'm definitely slightly more interested than I was before.
It's I got it on sale as well. I'm pretty sure it was like $6 when I picked it up, and it is more than worth the price, full price. There's a Cat Quest 2 coming out this year that I just found out about. It's like cats and dogs. There's a dog empire somewhere in it, and you actually have a dog character that you're playing at the same time, kind of like the Mario and Luigi RPGs on Game Boy Advance. So I'm all in on launch day for that one whenever it releases. I bought World of Final Fantasy after that on the Switch. It was on sale, and I'm torn on World of Final Fantasy Maxima. It's like, I like this game. I enjoy playing this game, but I don't know if I'm going to like continuing to play this game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hard bounced off that one, but I could see how it could draw you in and then not make you stay. Like, I could definitely see that being a reaction to that game.
I think that's what's going to happen to me because I haven't gone back to it and I haven't really hit that point, but it's kind of a mix between Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest Monsters, and Pokemon. It's got monster capturing, it's got all of that, but it's different where it has a story that I think is actually going to be a Final Fantasy style epic story as it moves forward a little bit here. But it's just the mechanics of it, of stacking monsters in different patterns, like large, small, and medium monsters to go into battle, and is a cool mechanic, but it's not my kind of mechanic. And then you can be toppled, or you can separate the stack and have three characters that don't combine powers. Like, there's a lot of strategy in the idea of the battle system, but I don't think that the collecting of them and having to put together these teams of around 6 to 9 different monsters that you go in and out of for a small stack, a large stack for both characters. I think you get 4. Yeah, you'll have 4 teams basically that you can mix and match between. And I think that's just a little too, I don't even want to say it's complicated, but it's just a little too much for me to want to put everything together into an RPG. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like, I want to like it, but I probably won't get very far into it, but I'll play it because I like the parts that I've played so far.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
And then I tried Undertale. It was on sale. I may be the only person in the world who doesn't like Undertale, and I feel very bad about that because I love the art. Like, I love the art style. I love the humor in it. But man, I hate the battles. That bullet hell battle system that they have is making me not play the game. The puzzles are really cool, but I can't even be nice and spare enemies without having to do the bullet hell thing and dying. Like, I don't want to do that in an RPG. It's a turn-based RPG with puzzles. I don't want to dodge things in a bullet hell game, which is why I turned off Cuphead. I mean, I don't. And I'm really sad because I heard so many good things about this, like being the be-all, end-all MD RPG, and I don't think it's that good.
Okay. I mean, I tried it. I know I talked about it when I did. I played it for, I don't know, a handful of hours. Like, I got further than I thought that I would. But I just kind of like, I don't know, there wasn't enough there that was hooking me. And like, the battles were okay, but I didn't love them. And I think that's how I felt about the game in general. A lot of it was like, okay, but I didn't love it. And supposedly it subverts all sorts of just like conventions in general.
Yeah.
And I was seeing it, but they were all so predictable to me. I was like, oh, okay, I know what they're going to do with this. I was never really surprised by the game, even in like however many hours I spent with it, 4 or 5 hours with it, something like that.
Yeah.
So I set it down. But I could see that since you really don't like bullet hell games, like I could see how you just wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, if that one thing, and I know that's kind of its thing, but if there were a remake, or not even a remake, but a way to do it without that particular element, I think I would really like the game and go through, because I liked the way it handled pretty much everything else, even the sliding, like pick when you need to stop the bar action fighting stuff. That was cool. Just hate the bullet hell enough that I don't want to play the game. So that was pretty much me this week. I've been playing Chrono Cross still, which is still a very awesome game. Little slow paced, but still super fun.
Cool. It is. Yeah, I gotta give that another shot at some point. I would need to get over the combat again, but there's something there for sure.
Yeah, super good. If you like Chrono Trigger, you owe it to yourself to at least finish it up, but it may take you some trouble because it's definitely a PS1 game.
I mean, I finished it. I finished it when it came out, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, it was released for me, so that's been 19 years now.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
So this week, like I said, I was sick over the weekend, so I kind of talked about what I did before, like last week, and then over the weekend itself, it was just going between like fevered sleep, and then I would wake up enough, but I didn't have enough mental energy to like read a book or actually play a game or really engage with anything. So I did what I don't normally do, and I watched a bunch of TV and shows and movies and Netflix and that kind of thing. And I rapid fire went through my list, and I probably watched like 15 to 30 minutes of I don't even know how many different things, and I just bounced off of like thing after thing after thing. So I'm not going to go through all that because that'd be boring to talk about. I'm going to talk about a couple of the things that were interesting. So Dragon Prince Season 2 was really good. I enjoyed that. So I watched that with my daughter because she's kind of the only one who could be around me because she already had whatever this sickness was. So she and I were hanging out because I took care of her and then she took care of me, basically.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, and then I watched Aquaman one day, and it's still a DC Cinematic Universe movie. Like the story is kind of meh, like it's whatever. But the underwater special effects make it very worthwhile to watch that movie one time. Like I'm really glad I watched it once, but besides the special effects and the underwater battles and stuff, it was just kind of okay. Did you ever watch it?
No, I didn't. You sent me some messages about it this weekend, though, and it really surprised me that you liked it. That you were saying positive things about it. That was one of the ones that you stuck with. It really did take me by surprise.
Yeah, I was surprised too. After all the different things I bounced off of, that I actually watched Aquaman start to finish. And like I said, it's not amazing. It's still a DC superhero movie. Like set your expectations. But the underwater fights and the underwater special effects were really, really cool. Like that's why I liked it. That's why I stuck with it.
I heard that in the theater that I haven't seen. I've seen the trailers, but that's really it. I don't really know anything about the movie because I was so not interested in the DC movies. But I did see almost everybody who saw it say that the underwater special effects, that they really pulled it off, that they did a great job on them.
Yeah, they did. They did a great job. It was really cool. So if that interests you at all for the special effects, not for the rest of it, but yeah, you could check that out. I watched Love, Death, and Robots, which is a new Netflix original, and it's an anthology series of shorts that are all about, well, all of them have like love, death, and robots in it. I mean, it's kind of in the title. And they run from like, I think the shortest one I watched was like 5 minutes, and then they go up to like 20-ish minutes. So they're not super long, which is nice. If you ever run into one that you don't like or you're not feeling, you just kind of like jump to the next one, or you sit there for another 10 minutes and it's over anyway. So, but it's definitely like TV, like MA rated, it's not for kids at all.
Right.
It's good if you don't mind a darker take on sci-fi, even though they aren't all dark. A lot of them are. And a lot of it is like, not all of it. Again, not all of it, because everyone, it feels like it's a different creator. It's a different like animation style. Some of them are 3D. I think there's a couple that are 2D. But they all have different looks and feels and creators and stories and stuff. So everyone kind of stands on its own. But a lot of them, one of the through lines that I was noticing was they felt kind of male gazy, which is not great. It's there if you know what you're looking for. If not, you could overlook it too. But I get the impression that it's kind of, when people get the Netflix, you can make whatever you want because it's not real TV, and we're not going to rate it whatever. Like you can do absolutely anything. They go towards a lot of those kind of like, let's do nudity, let's do not even sex, but just, like a lot of topics that you don't need to do it. Like sometimes they're just doing it for shock factor. And I got the impression that some of them were doing that, whereas some of them use the M rating really well. And then some of them don't even use like the M rating. Some of them are just kind of like a story that, if this was outside of the rest of this anthology and it was on its own, it would probably be like TV PG type of thing.
Right.
So it's a very mixed bag. But
yeah, I mean, I have that thing. I went on a Twitter rant the other day. I think it may have been last week sometime about Devil May Cry 5 and the censorship stuff, because it's like you put stuff in like that for the shock value, or you put it in to further the narrative. And when you have stuff like that in because that's the point of it, like Deadpool, it's like, great, go ahead. That's what these platforms are for. But when it's male gazy and mature for no other reason than you got the go ahead, then that's actually a detriment to that particular work.
Well, and the thing is, like, all of my favorite ones in there weren't that way at all. So I don't want to make it sound like the whole thing is. It's just something to be aware of if you're going to go check it out. If it bothers you, or if it's, a trigger for you, any of that kind of stuff, like, just so it's out there. But I really like this series. I mean, even though some of them were that way, a lot of them weren't, and a lot of them were just like really interesting self-contained stories. So I watched probably about half of it. I still want to watch the other half, so I can report back when I do that.
I didn't know they were animated until this for some reason, because I hadn't looked it up yet. I thought that they were live action, kind of like Black Mirror.
I think they're all animated. I don't think any of them are live action at all.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they were cool. And then I watched.
So wait! You found animation. You found animation and cartoons that you stuck with.
Well, I mean, most of them are like 3D animated, yeah.
Still, you don't like cartoons. I'm going to count this as a win.
Okay, I don't know. I like 3D CG movies often enough that I guess I didn't see this as a huge exception. I guess I think of cartoons as 2D, which is... There weren't a whole lot of 2D ones in here. I think it was mostly 3D. But sure, if you want to count it as a win, you can count it as a win.
Fair.
And then I watched Wreck-It Ralph 2, which is way better than I thought it would be.
It's very good.
I started it expecting nothing, and there were parts of it that I just loved. Like, I loved when they went to the Disney website, and there was like a Wilhelm scream moment with the stormtrooper that was just perfect. It was just perfect the way they did that. And then the Disney princesses were amazing in it. And the whole thing just told a much better story than it had any right to. Like, I don't know how they made a movie that was as good as this was after the first one. Because, like, the first one was all right. Like, I know you liked it a lot, but I thought it was
I like the first one better than this one, but I thought, like, you and I have the exact opposite feelings on this one. I like this one and think it's fine, and I'm going to see it again, but I don't think it's, like, amazing, and I thought that about the first one.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like amazing. It's just so much better than my expectations for it were that I had to say something about it. It like far and away exceeded my expectations, no question.
And I went in, I don't even know what I expected out of it. There were so many things in there, though, that just worked, that you really didn't expect would work. And for me, the GTA Online entire thing running through it just made my day. And what was great about that, because it was so post-apocalyptic, and I was like, oh, they did this instead of GTA Online. The literal next day, I logged in and Twitter had an ad for a post-apocalyptic GTA expansion, and I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea.
That's funny.
But yeah, the princesses. What'd you think about the princesses?
They were one of the best parts of the whole movie. It was great. I was just like dying of laughter in a really good way.
Somebody told me that maybe they're trying to do a Disney princess shared universe at this point because of that. Like, I don't know if that's just a rumor or if Disney had actually said something about it. I just don't know.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I'd be here for it. I'm all for it. So outside of like watching, like I said, I watched a ton of stuff just for like 15 or 30 minutes, and I bounced to the next thing because things weren't holding my attention. But besides the things that I liked, and then all the stuff I bounced off of, like as I started to get better, so this was more like Sunday, I finally did get around to Devil May Cry 5. It just wasn't on my sick day that I took. So if you don't know Devil May Cry, it's been around since like the PlayStation 2 era. I think it's a PS2 game originally.
Yeah, I think it was PS2.
Yeah, and it's kind of like badass demon hunters third-person action game, and it's all around like that early 2000s idea of cool, and the thing is, this game knows what it is. It knows that it's like channeling that era of, quote unquote cool, and it just leans into it. It just plays into it so much. And because of that, because I know that it knows what it is, it's just dumb fun in a really good way. There's this intro sequence, not right at the beginning, but it's like once you get into kind of the game proper, after the true like prologue intro type of thing. There's a van and you're going on the van and there's tons of demons around. He's like shooting them out the windows and stuff. And there's a roadblock coming up. So the lady driving the van like sends it into a skid and then hits it at an angle. So the van flips itself upside down. And while it's in midair doing this barrel roll, the main character or one of the main characters jumps out of the van and flies next to it in the air while shooting a bunch of demons with like one-liners. Like, that's the kind of game this is, and it stays like that throughout the whole thing. So
that sounds about right.
I knew that it was going to be this going into it. It was really fun for like 2 days, and now I'm done with it. But that's all I wanted out of it. Like, I just wanted to get that experience because I played all the games originally when I thought they were like legitimately cool because I was much younger.
That was your God of War days too, right?
It was around the same time. Yes.
So I mean, of course, yeah.
So it's kind of like channeling back to that. I can enjoy it for what it is right now, but only for 2 days apparently, and now I'm done with it. But I'm still glad that I got it just to experience it. But if that sounds like something you're interested in, it reminded me of a 2D, or not a 2D, but a PS2 game in kind of the best way, whereas like Kingdom Hearts 3 reminded me of a PS2 game in the worst way. Yeah, this was interesting channeling of like PS2 era games into PS4. And I mean, I played some of them between then and now, but still, that's what it reminded me of. But it's a hack and slash, the combo action, third person. I think it's called like character action games is the actual genre, kind of like Bayonetta, that type of thing. Yeah. So if you're into that kind of game, it's really solid. Like the gameplay mechanics, the combat is solid. And there are 3 playable characters in this one. So there's Nero, who was in the last one. I think, 4 he was in. There's Dante, because Dante's always been in it from the beginning. And there's a new character called V, who's basically like a Pokemon trainer. Like he just summons these like demon monster animals to attack. And he's really interesting because he's like so different from the other characters. But it kind of made me think about, how do you do a Pokemon trainer like live action game? And the way that V plays in Devil May Cry 5 is kind of one of the ways you could go about it, which was an interesting thought to have. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's Devil May Cry 5.
I think that might make me look up V videos. Like, this is not a game that I would enjoy playing.
No,
I know,
I don't think
because
you'd like
I've played the first 3 of them, and not beat them, but played the first 3 of them, and I'm like, yep, that is a game that I am not good at. But see, I have maybe 30 minutes of fun in a Devil May Cry game before I'm like, okay, I'm done. But I want to see what V is.
Yeah, you should look it up. It's really interesting. I probably had like 4 hours of fun, over 2 different days.
Okay.
But yeah, that was enough. That's kind of all that I wanted, all I expected out of it. And then the last thing that I played was Slay the Spire, which has been on my list to get back to for a while. I talked about it when it was in early access, but it finally hit 1.0 sometime right around the time that I was moving. So I didn't get back to it until this last weekend. And now that it's in a full release, like, it's still a great deck building game. Like, I just love it as a deck building game. And have we ever talked about like the difference between games where you build decks and what a deck building game actually is?
I know the difference. I don't know if we've mentioned it actually on air, like with people who may not.
So I don't enjoy games where you build decks ahead of time a whole lot. So this would be like LCGs or CCGs, or like Magic the Gathering is the one that you can point to that most people know the most readily.
Yeah, Hearthstone.
Where you have this huge collection of cards, and before you ever go into the gameplay, you put together a deck of 30 or 60 or however many cards for that particular game. That would be like deck building, but a deck builder or a deck building game, which is like a specific genre, is one where you start a run or a session or a whatever with a limited number of cards, and as you go through the gameplay, you slowly acquire new cards and modify your deck like as you're going along. And I really like deck building games, even though I don't like building decks outside of the games, like the metagame part of it.
And I love deck building games in person. Like, I've never played a single player deck building game, but I love them like with groups of people. You get like 8 people around playing a deck building game, and they're hilariously fun.
Yeah, there's what's the Marvel one? I always forget what it's called.
Is it Sentinel? Not Sentinels of the Multiverse. That's a different one, isn't it?
That's a different one too. Yeah, Legendary might be one of the Marvel ones I'm thinking of. There's a bunch of them out there though, and this is where my sick brain is coming in. I know them all and they're all on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember all of the main ones that people would know. But there's a lot of deck builder games. And so this is a computer-based one. So, I mean, you're just playing it digitally. I have it on Steam. And there's a new character in it that's called the Automaton, which is really interesting. And I've been playing around with him more over the last couple days. He has there's 3 different characters and all of them have completely different cards, completely different decks, completely different mechanics, which is really fun. So if you ever get sick of one, you can just jump to another and get a different experience, basically. But this one, it channels these orbs and it has multiple orb slots that are kind of permanent and they're separate from the cards in your hand, but the cards in your hand interact with the orbs. So it was fascinating. I keep going back to the Silent, which is the second character because I really like that one. It's kind of like a rogue blade wielder, but it can do poisoning and stuff like that. I just like the combos that you can set up as you're playing around with the deck. But a lot of the fun of the game is figuring out the synergies and the combos and how are you going to make the cards interact with each other as you keep making the deck bigger throughout playing and see how far you can get on one run. So it has a little bit of the roguelike element because when you kind of restart a run, you reset your deck, back to that beginning starting hand, but it plays different enough every time that there's a lot there to experience. So my only regret about Slay the Spire is that it's still only on PC. I think it's out on Switch soon, but really I want this game on iOS because I would play it daily. I would make this part of my daily routine to just pick away at Slay the Spire, do at least one run a day because I like it that much.
That would actually make me pick it up, I think, because that's the kind of game that I don't necessarily want to sit at my computer and play.
Yeah, that's the only part of it that I don't like. I don't like playing this at the computer, even though it's such a good game that anytime I start it, I will play it for multiple hours, which is probably a ringing endorsement from me. The fact that it can suck me in that easily. The hard part for me is wanting to sit down at the computer to play it because it doesn't feel like that's the best fit for it. It feels like it'd be much better on iOS or something else. I mean, even console, I don't want to sit at a TV and play this. I want to just get out my phone and casually play this while I'm doing other stuff, basically.
The Switch would be great for this.
Yeah, and it is coming out on Switch. I know that. It's just, I don't think it has an official release date yet.
Okay.
I think that's about it for this week. Like I said, shorter episode just due to a sick day, and I'm coughing. I'm trying to edit it all out, so hopefully you guys haven't noticed, but we're dealing with it. We're making do. You can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address, as always, is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on our subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
We also have great discussions on Slack and Discord. You can go to geek2geekmedia.com for invite links, and you can check out all the other shows on the network while you're there.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's, and I'm blogging over at the Geek to Geek Media site.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Bye, geeks. Feel better, Void.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea, and we are the hosts of Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. We are 2 best friends who love pop culture and talking about pretty much whatever we want. Katie!
Yes?
Stop thinking about Zac Efron and tell our future listeners what some of our latest episodes have been about.
Well, we've talked about Zac Efron.
No, get it together, Katie.
Fine. We've talked about fan fiction, classical literature adaptations, favorite TV couples, and so much more. So grab your cup of tea or whatever your drink of choice is and download our podcast today.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.
Hello,
friends, this is Troidal Power inviting you to join me over on Twitch most weeknights, sometime after dinner. Video games have always been a social hobby for me, with friends and family crammed together on a couch, chatting away while someone holds the controller. And thanks to the power of the internet, I've got my own virtual couch over on Twitch, where you can kick back and goof off while I play games. Find me on Twitch by searching Troidal Power, that's Troytle Power, to snag a spot on the couch.